Hi guys, it is Fontaine Felicia Foxworth back on my Melonade Stand YouTube channel, and today I am going to be speaking about the phases of detachment that we can experience along this journey. Okay, I don't have any announcements, so we're going to get right into it. Alright, so there are 5 things and experiences that I feel that I've experienced, or at least the 4 of them. You know, just these periods of just disconnecting and detachment from the matrix in different ways. Alright, so here we go. Number 1, the first one is the initial feeling of oneness. When you first tap into the idea and the understanding that I am you and you are me, you know, that everything is connected, the understanding of collective consciousness, the understanding of no separation from source, meaning, you know, everything that we see around us is an embodiment of God, including ourselves. So once you break through the matrix and understand that concept, there's a period of bliss that kind of accompanies that. For me, it came after this feeling of oneness and detachment from everything came after that period of bliss and laughing and just chuckling. I was just so silly one day. I just felt so, you know, just like weirdly joyful in a way that I never felt, you know, as well as noticing people's reactions to me just differently and feeling it energetically. I remember being on an interview and my interviewer was just mesmerized by me, and not because I'm cute, because I know I'm cute, but just in a different way. They were where it seemed like they were seeing an aura around me, or something that just had both my interviewers that day just kind of like stuck, and it was just a different energy. You know, so shortly after that, in the laughing and the bliss, I experienced this kind of like quieting in my mind. This, you know, there were no thoughts, just almost like an emptiness, but in a good way. Like, have you ever tried just like being to yourself and not thinking about anything, not having like random stuff pop up? I was in a mode where that wasn't even a struggle. It was nothing happening. There was nothing there. Along with that, kind of felt this weightlessness, and also, or almost as if I was underwater. It was a really, really beautifully weird feeling. And it only lasted for about 3 to 4 hours, and ironically it was the day or the night that Trump got elected. So while I was still, of course, feeling sad and disappointed about the election, there was a part of me that just, I was in a higher vibration, I was in a higher state. So that is the first initial feeling of detachment that I have experienced. Number 2, detachment from family and friends. You experience this detachment when you start realizing who's of your family and friend is just not woke at all, and just the vibration is so low. You start experiencing this willful detachment as you begin to vibrate out of their low frequency spiral, and it's just something that naturally happens, and you feel no ways about it. You know, it's almost as if your soul is helping you feel no ways about it, because you just feel so detached from the people that you've had to cut off. Along this journey, I've had to shed, cut, snip, left and right, to the point where I really had no friends. And for a minute, while I was into it, I kind of felt like sad and lonely because I had no friends, you know. But then I realized that I've never really had real friends that weren't going to energy vamp off of me from before I realized I was an empath and stuff like that. So once I went through those motions of realizing that they wasn't really my friends to begin with, you know, maybe just soul contracts to help me get to this point, to be honest, the detachment became real, and I had no problem with the snippety snip. Like I could cut you off in a second and not feel emotionally connected. And this is also is with family, you know, mothers, dads, brothers, sisters, cousins. Once you start to wake up and start to vibrate out of their frequency, if they're not waking up, you don't really feel away. And you have to learn how to balance that. You know, you don't want to, you know, if it's an uncle that ain't never did nothing to you, you know, like, you be kind and everything else, but you just really don't feel a cord. So that detachment happens when you have to cut ethereal cords with people in your life whose frequency you are vibrating out of. You know, and over time, you legit just feel no way about it, and it's not malicious, it's not, you know, you're not trying to hurt nobody, it's just you literally are just vibrating out of the frequency of certain people, places, things, jobs, co-workers. And so that's number 2. Another form of detachment is when you're starting to cut cords with people as you wake up, and you deal with it over time, and you don't feel bad about it. So that's number 2. Okay, ego death detachment, that's a biggie. There is 4 parts to this one, because I feel like the ego death detachment happens in phases as we ascend, and shed a lot of old matrix stuff from our soul in conscious awareness and behavior. So let's go through it. So 3A, detachment from materialism, superficiality, social media, and social interactions. This phase really starts to happen when you're no longer, you know, fiending to get the newest iPhone, and when you realize at the end of the day, it's all material that is not as important. Certain things just don't become important to you. You know, if you used to buy like fancy handbags, you might still like that stuff, but when you go through this initial phase, it's like the material things lose value when you realize the profound bigness of even the smallest things in the universe, like a blade of grass or a, you know, mitochondria, whatever. You just kind of start to lose your desire for material things. Transparency becomes very important to you. What's the point of bullshitting? Everybody in this world wears a false self anyway, especially when they're asleep. So you start to shed anything superficial, and you start to become just real. And you start to be allergic to anything that's not real and transparent. Social media, you start seeing people on Instagram or Facebook for what they are, as far as what they are projecting, you know, and it's everything just, you just start to see the bullshit just quicker. In that sense, you become detached. You know, with certain interactions, you might not want to go to certain low frequency places to party anymore. You know, there's just certain things where you just detach from it, and you start to realize that, and you start to let go of any kind of materialistic, you know, popping bottles type of lifestyle, or just being flashy, or just, you know, you just kind of start to shed that shit and really get to the basics of what truly is important to you and to the world and to humanity, and you're not as caught up in a lifestyle of sorts, whatever you might have been before. You kind of let it go, and you become detached from it, and you balance that part of your ego that wants you to have all this stuff. Okay, so yeah, detachment from materialism and superficial stuff happens. So ego death 3B, detachment to anything that is not purpose driven. Okay, so there was a time for me along my ascension where I was willing to just forget all of my biggest dreams that I ever had in my whole life, because I realized it wasn't connected to my grandest, my biggest purpose. Therefore, the desire to make it happen just started to fade. You know, I've always wanted to open up my own restaurants and hospitality establishments, and while that is still something I'm interested in, it's not a part of my biggest purpose. So, you know, it was once something that I was working for and trying to save up for, and and plan and mark milestones out like my life was dedicated to it. But then I started realizing that it was not a part of my bigger purpose. And then the tarot cards came along, and that was something that was divinely inspired, something that was a part of my purpose. So it started to align. It just started to fall into place, and it started to work for me. Whereas the hospitality stuff was just not working. I even had opened up my own speakeasy in my house, built out a whole bar and everything. It was beautiful, y'all. It was such a wonderful experience and taught me a lot, but it was not manifesting in a way where it was sustaining and where it seemed like it was something I should continue putting my energy into. So when the cards came about, everything just fell into place. So look out for the video that I'm going to do about that next, about how Melanated Stands Tarot came into place, or fell into place. And yeah, because it was a part of my purpose. So that is 3B, detachment from anything that's not purpose-driven is something that we experience on this journey. Anything that is attached to your dissolving ego starts to fade away. So the restaurant business and hospitality started to detach from my identity and from what I thought I wanted, you know, from my performance-based desires to my purpose-based desires, which started with the healing and the tarot. Okay? And ultimately finding out that my biggest purpose is to be a healer. 3C, detachment from the old self, the old identity that was connected to your ego. Piggybacking off of the last one, it's really just about detachment from all of the things that used to identify who you are, or things that you felt defined you, things that were important to you. This can also represent any kind of codependency to addictions, drugs, alcohol, weed, just whatever kind of took your power from you in a sense. You know, negative relationships, fuck boys, all that, anything that that you identified with, but from your false sense of self. So this can also include organized religious affiliations, you know, government, political affiliations with the conservative right or you know, the left. Whatever you subscribe to, that was just all a part of your, you know, matrix ego. This can even mean personality traits, you know, the old parts of your personality that, you know, that starts to fade. That could represent any toxic characteristics that you inherited from your parents, if they, you know, if you had a toxic mom or a toxic dad or a narcissistic parent, or you know, or authority figure in your life, and you kind of subconsciously adopted a lot of their traits. Detaching from the old self could mean that too. Okay, so number 3, ego death, part D, is a feeling of healthy non-attachment. This is revolving around the conditions of the world. You know, obviously we are empathetic to what's going on, but as you start to wake up and as you enter this phase of detachment, you know, you feel bad about things, but you also kind of shut down the feelings and emotion around it, because you know it's all connected to the matrix. It's all connected to the illusion. So all the awful things happening in the world, you know, in this country politically, what's happening with that, you know, the shootings, of course you feel for it and you feel bad for it, but there's a part of you that is disconnected or detached, you know, because you know it's connected to the matrix. And it's a weird feeling when you first start getting into this detachment, and you may even feel like, why do I just kind of feel numb to it all? But you know, you get through it with balance, and you're able to understand ultimately why you feel this way in this phase of detachment. Okay, you guys, and number 4 is detachment from success. Okay, this is that feeling of neutrality that I was telling you guys about in the video about how to work in the matrix temporarily again. I definitely was in a space of just wanting to just be, wanting to just exist. I wasn't even really concerned about my purpose during that time. It truly was just a neutral feeling, and a detachment to what success is supposed to be in this world, you know, how much money you have, how many followers you have, all that stuff. Just kind of like, I'm done with it. you know, that's where I was, and I just wanted to exist. I wanted to live versus survive, and that is a big part of this detachment. When you detach and disconnect yourself from the idea that we gotta struggle, we gotta fight, we gotta push, to being an ebb and flow, and that is a very neutral feeling of neutrality in this form of detachment. So, you know, for me, I went through this phase, and then, you know what happened right out of that? I bloomed into my higher self. Really just from just letting go and surrendering completely to the idea of doing, fighting, going after things. Because you realize once you get through this detachment, everything comes to you because you are manifesting it on a higher level. Your soul is co-creating this with source, especially because it's coming through purpose. Okay? You know, so I went through this phase of detachment recently, and then voila, y'all, I'm bloomed into my higher self. Finally, number 5, and I must add this, that this is a false light sense of detachment. This is not something that we are meant to stay in forever along this ascension journey. This is the idea of the non-dualistic detachment. This comes into play when you become disassociated from your 3D incarnation here. Okay? This is what the New Age spiritual teachers want you to embrace, the idea that there's no negative emotions or feelings, and anger is a choice in a sense, or you know, not to react or embrace or unpack or feel deeply any kind of dense polarities. And that's just far from the truth of reality. We might be awakening and waking up and ascending. It doesn't mean that we are escaping completely negative emotions or sad or bad feelings. Like, that's just silly. You know, and I feel like a lot of New Age people teach that. You know, this form of detachment really also stems from some esoteric, like Eastern belief systems, where like the monks, for instance, where you are supposed to just be in a meditative state all the time, all day, you know, just up here and not grounded and rooted into your body. You know, you're supposed to always be in this high vibration all the time, you know, and kind of live in your higher self. The whole point of Ascension, as I have mentioned before, is about bringing the two pieces together and integrating your higher self with your physical body. That is the whole point, so that you can carry out your purpose and actively help rebuild a new paradigm, actively help recreate, you know, a new earth, you know, by once you integrate all of this stuff and get through all of this ascension, you can now actively fulfill your purpose. If you are stuck in the sky, stuck in a meditative state, stuck in a place of bliss and happiness and divine joy and disassociation, how can you follow out your mission? If you were planted here, it's time you have to sprout and bloom, and that means you gotta, you know, allow yourself to manifest the things you need for your purpose to help humanity ascend. You can't be stuck up in the sky all day. What you gonna do from up there? Okay, so you need to put all of your enlightenment into tangible physical practice and get out there and do your purpose. You can't do that if you're stuck in a disassociated state. These are the kind of people that also get stuck into this like instant manifestation from up here and kind of the law of attraction and that the mindfulness and stuff, and that's all part of this, but the two parts have to come together, you know. It has to connect. You can't be disconnected from your vessel and think you're going to carry out your purpose. If you are not actively a part of this light grid that we are ascending to where we are, how can you raise humanity? How can you help us rise? How can you raise the frequency of Mother Earth and Gaia? How can you do that? It's crucial for us to raise the veil, be in that place, and then bring it down. Otherwise, then what are we doing here? We're not supposed to just dip out of this planet and get zapped up and beamed away to another planet. That's just not how it works. To another place where there's only light and no duality exists. That's not how that works. We're building this. You know, we're building that to come down the road. You know, subscribing to that idea is a sure way to lose your mind, y'all. You know, so really try to get grounded and become, you know, connected both in the ethereal realms and connected, rooted down into Mother Earth to manifest and erect things as a part of your purpose. And I can guarantee you, the false light spiritual teachers who kind of teach this sense of disassociation and detachment, I bet you they pop out of their little bubbles from up there to go spend all that money they making. Okay, side eye for real. You know, so don't get caught up in that starseed matrix and that form of detachment. If you find yourself there, that's great. That's where you're supposed to be. But make sure you now tap into that and bring it down, y'all. That's like the magician card in tarot. You know, with the one hand up, you know, and the one hand down, pulling everything in. So that is it. Thank you guys for watching. And, you know, I just want to really thank you guys for all the beautiful comments and the messages and everything. So stay tuned for all the videos that I got coming up, and have a beautiful day.